Ariel, it's Tiki and Tierney. How you doing, buddy? What's happening?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
Awesome. So did the right individual win the fight?
Yeah, absolutely. I had it scored 48-47 for Connor. I had him winning the first, second, and fourth rounds. Most of my colleagues agreed. Anyone who says that Connor ran from the fight or fought an ugly fight, with all due respect, just doesn't know what they're watching. I mean, there were times in the third round where it looked like he was, on the ropes, so to speak, and it looked like he was very close to being finished. In my opinion, Connor showed us what he is truly all about, and people who have been following him for quite some time, believing in him, believing that he's more than just hype and talk, really, what he produced on Saturday backed all of that up. There's nothing left to be said as far as criticism, in my opinion, about Conor McGregor. He is the real deal, and he showed that on Saturday night, at least, he's the better fighter.
Well, that came from Nate Diaz, who said he ran. He said, quote,
Well,
he should have been given a
Nate,
yellow card. Now, I can understand this is the opponent,
yes,
and that's
he's
just
trying
his
to sell
perspective.
a third fight. Yeah, of course. I mean, look, Nate and his brother Nick have long been talking about, back in the day in Japan, in an organization called Pride, they used to give out yellow cards. Same sort of thing as in soccer, where if you're stalling or not fighting properly, you get issued a yellow card. To them, you get a red card. And they've talked about loving this idea. The thing about, the Diaz brothers is, they're always the kind of fighters who will, go right to the center of the octagon, stand in the pocket, and just love to trade shots. And that's what Nate did. It was interesting in the post-fight presser. He said that he thought he relied too much on his wrestling, which I disagree with. I thought he should have relied more on the wrestling, because the one place in the game where he has a clear advantage over Connor is on the ground. And I thought he didn't go to that, that toolbox enough. I think he could have won the fight had he done that.
Yeah, no, that's what got Conor McGregor in the first fight. Once they got on the ground, he was inferior, meaning Conor, an inferior wrestler on the ground, and got a rear naked chokehold. So Conor did what he needed to do to win, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, Connor dropped him once in the first, twice in the second. So he clearly won the first two rounds. I know the second round, the last 90 seconds or so were in Diaz's favor, but it certainly wasn't enough to win the round. Third round was all Diaz.
Yep.
I thought Connor came back very strong in the fourth. I thought the fifth was a toss-up until the final minute or so when Nate Diaz landed his first takedown. A lot of credit should go to Connor on this one, and in particular his coach, John Kavanagh, who said going into the fight that his reputation was at stake as far as this fight is concerned. They made some great adjustments. Connor isn't the kind of guy to throw a lot of leg kicks, and he threw a ton in the first two rounds and was limping noticeably afterwards. Thought maybe he broke his foot or something like that, and I think that was the big difference early on, because he was really mixing it up. And in the past, Nate Diaz has always been susceptible to the leg kick, and it was the perfect game plan, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think your scoring synopsis is on point here. Round 3, all Diaz. A little discrepancy in round 5, depending upon who you talk to, but I'm with you. Ariel Helwani is with us here on Tiki and Tierney, CBS Sports Radio. This is what I don't get. If I'm trying to monetize the sport and squeeze out every penny that I can, I know what Dana White said already, but why would Dana White not take the exact opposite position, throw these guys back in the ring for a third time, let them beat the crap out of each other? All the conversation that's flowed from fight number 2, it would seep into fight number 3. Why not?
Well, it's almost just as interesting, in my opinion, as the fight and rivalry itself. It's the back and forth tension brewing between both Conor in the UFC and Nate in the UFC. There is a power struggle going on, and what makes this rivalry so interesting is that these two have been working in unison unintentionally. Like, it's not like they call each other on the phone and plan things out, but they have been working better together than no two fighters in UFC history to make more money than any other two fighters in UFC history for one particular fight, and to also prove to the UFC that, look, we're the stars, we're the show, we're the draw. Remember, there was no belt at stake, there was no number one contender status at stake, and yet look what they generated. They proved on Saturday and back in March that, when the fighters have momentum and power and, all this buzz on their side, that they can be bigger than the show, and the UFC sometimes feels a little bit uncomfortable with that. So I think that was Dana's way of saying, hey, we're taking back some of this control. The last thing Conor McGregor said at the press conference on Saturday was, I believe that expletive is about to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And then he walked off.
Yeah,
pretty telling stuff.
Ariel, you talk about the purse. You're right. Conor made $3 and Nate Diaz made $2 million for this fight, which is extraordinary. in one fight. But what's more important in MMA fighting, and particularly the UFC, is it who has the belt, kind of the old school boxing mentality? Because let's not forget, Conor McGregor has to fight for the belt in the featherweight division. Nate Diaz is a lightweight. So is the matchup more important, or is the champion more important?
Well, we're seeing a shift these days. It used to be the belt, but over the last year or so, and in large part due to this particular rivalry where no belt has been at stake, we're starting to see that, the draw is bigger than the belt itself. So, yeah, the belt can get you some power, and it's sort of your golden ticket to start calling some shots. But, if you are a huge draw like Nate Diaz is, and you've never been a champion, it has now been proven that the draw is bigger than the belt. And, of course, if you're the draw and have the belt, well, then that's a great concoction. But in the past, the belt, has been this sort of crown that a fighter, wants to get so that he can start calling shots. But Conor and Nate have proven that you don't necessarily need that belt anymore to start calling shots.
Hey, by the way, we were curious. Were you at the press conference, the pre-fight press conference?
Yes, sir.
Was that? I mean, we thought it was kind of contrived. I mean, when they started, that was legit. Flinging bottles, that was real?
That was legit. That was 100% legit because, again, in the moment, I thought it was a huge mistake on the UFC's part to start the press conference without Conor. How are you going to start a press conference without half the draw?
Yeah.
But that became a story in itself. The tension in the air. Dana White clearly agitated that he showed up late yet again. Nate saying what he was saying. Is Conor going to arrive? Conor arrives. Nate walks out. They start to get pissed at each other. Balls being thrown. I mean, these two guys, look, deep down inside, they truly respect each other. I firmly believe that, and you saw that on Saturday night. But there is a rivalry there, and what made this fight so interesting, in my opinion, was it had nothing to do with belts or whatever, but it really was like a playground fight. You beat me the first time. Okay, let's meet 4 o'clock tomorrow at the playground. I'm going to beat you this time. And when that's involved, there's a lot of ego involved, and tensions are going to flare.
Yeah, I think you kind of answered my question because you just said that you do think that they really respect each other, and the way they embraced after the fight would certainly validate your point and back it up here. But I heard Diaz say something after it. He was like, basically, that McGregor wasn't able to go out and celebrate and go and party, and he went from respect mode to diss mode pretty quick. So I guess it's just a competitive thing, right?
It's a competitive thing. Look what they were saying in the cage right after, and that's not an indication that this fight was thrown or anything like that, but they both recognized that a third fight makes them a lot of money. Could you imagine the UFC's debut November 12th at Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena, the home, by the way, of the 2017 NBA champions? And BT, man, you got to get on board. I'm tired of this hate. My man Melo's killing it. We need a voice like yours in New York. Give him some props. We need that support, my man.
Ariel, listen.
You got to get on board. Get on board.
Ariel, I get on board with things I believe in, not just things I love. You know I love the Knicks, but I got to call for what it is, and I don't win.
What is it?
Listen, I'm encouraged.
He's surrounded by no one. He has no one on his team.
Which is why he was so emotional and excited about the Olympics. I'm telling you.
100%, because he finally got to win. But this is a guy, make no mistake about it, this is a guy who could have taken a 2-year deal and then test the waters this summer and cash in. But he said, no, I'm going to support this team. I'm going to be loyal to this team. They gave up a lot for me. Come on, where's the props for that? This is the only guy that wants to be in New York, and look what he's done. KP, growing under his wing.
Listen, I know what's happened. I'll tell you this. The day that
you got a loud voice.
Hey.
Stop being a hater.
I'm not being a hater. I'm being a realist, man. The next best day for me as a Knicks fan is when Carmelo retires. Honestly, he's not going to win anything here.
Here's the truth of the matter. You don't deserve Carmelo Anthony, and a lot of the fans here don't deserve Carmelo Anthony the same way that they ran Patrick Ewing out of this town. Patrick Ewing is a much more successful player and a Hall of Famer, all that stuff, my favorite player of all time.
Okay.
We need to start supporting Carmelo because he's doing a lot of good for this team, in my opinion.
Yeah, 17 wins 2 years ago. That was a great season.
Yeah, that was terrific. Look at the team. Look what he had on the team.
Hey, Ariel,
nobody.
He really lit up my winter. Man, thank God he got me through that malaise. Boy, oh boy, you're right. Let's give props.
It's all on him. Let's not blame Derek Fisher, who had no business.
I got you. I hear you.
It's all on him. It's always – anyhow, sorry about that. My point is, Could you imagine? I had to go on that rant.
No, I
I've been
know what
waiting
you're
to do
saying.
that for a while.
I got you.
Conor versus Nate
Yeah.
at the debut show at MSG, November 12th. There's no bigger rivalry, no bigger fight. Could you imagine what that would do for the sport?
It
and the
would be
amount of
huge.
attention?
Well, we were going to ask you, and it's Ariel Helwani with us here, UFC reporter, MMAfighting.com. Do we see Rousey at the Garden debut as well? What's the story?
They want her to fight on that date, but it might be a little too soon. Early
Too
June,
soon?
she had a knee scope in early June, and to be honest, I don't think she's 100% recovered from that loss to Holly Holm. And I know what you're going to say. Wow, that was in November. How is she not recovered? But mentally, emotionally, and physically, I still think she's recovering. And I think that while that is the ideal scenario for them, and I do think that she is going to come back at some point, November 12th, which is now, less than 3 months away, might be a little too soon for her.
Okay. What about the pregnancy rumor? Is that nonsense?
Honestly, I'm not in her bathroom when she's taking tests. I have no idea what's going on there. That's something I don't like to touch that stuff.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you.
Stay in your lane, brother. Stay in your lane.
I don't blame you at all.
And stay in your lane with Mello, too.
We only have about 30 seconds here, Ariel.
Okay.
What effect is this potential UFC union going to have?
Well, it's not officially a union, but a group has come out led by Jeff Boris, longtime agent of the likes of Barry Bonds, Bobby Bonilla, Ricky Henderson, and they want to unionize the fighters. Of course, you have to get the support of the fighters, and a lot of fighters, while deep down they want it, are afraid to, kind of bother the UFC, to put it mildly. And then, of course, you have to have the UFC recognize it. So I do believe in 5 to 10 years, the landscape of the sport economically will change.
Yep.
I'm not sure if this is the group to do it. Things are going to change soon.
There we go.
Sort of like the fortunes of the New York Knicks. Get on board, B.
I hope you're right. Ariel Helwani. Hey, I'll see you at the parade, pal. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys.
When the Knicks win the parade, my son will be mayor at that point. He's 19 months old.